So, very warm welcome to all of you and a very good morning. Today it's the last class of the chapters of deductions from gross total income. And hi, I'm C. Ridhima Bhatia. In case any of you have any doubts in the previous two classes which we covered, please feel free to ask before we start the class today. So today is our last segment whereby we'll be discussing with deduction in respect of certain incomes and one which was left from the certain payment section, which is deduction in respect of rent paid. So please feel free to discuss the queries and then we can move forward. Very good morning, everyone. Rasmita, Sakshi, Rani, Kiran, Manohar, Hardik, Sushil, Ajay, Sankaran, Parth, Balamurali. वेरी गुड मॉर्निंग. आई होप किसी को डिडक्शंस के पार्ट पे कुछ इशू एज सच नहीं है. ओके. Ashish, hi. If you have a house income of 1 lakh and you have a house interest of 4.5 lakhs, you can claim 3 lakhs in 24B, correct? If it is a let out property, I'm assuming, obviously, because it has a house income, then 2 lakhs would be the net loss, which you will be adjusting from some other head, correct? And from your GTI, if there is a positive GTI, if there is any other income, obviously then you can claim that 1.5 lakh of the interest. So sort of that 4.5 lakh, correct, in under section 80EA. Very good. Provided all the conditions of the loan sanctions have been done. But this way you are saying that you can claim the total reduction of 4.5 lakhs in a single assessment year. Correct. Absolutely correct. There is nothing wrong. But now, is it optimum to do so? Is it the best solution to do so in the sense, if you'll do this in the exam, no one will say that this is wrong or right. It is absolutely right. But suppose if I don't have any gross total income, then claiming 80EA may 1.5 lakh does not make sense. Or even if in a scenario where I don't have that gross total income, it's better to claim at the entire interest under section 24B so that it can be carry forwarded and adjusted if you don't have any other gross total, any other income other than house property. Perfect. Shall we move forward now? Guys, ready, set, go. कोई और डाउट है? कोई डाउट नहीं है guys? पक्का sure? ठीक है. So now when we move forward today, we are doing in the last segment, up till the last class, we did medical premiums, we did ATDD, DDB, so and then we move forward to ATE, ATEE, EEA, EEB, then we did ATG and all the donations related section GGA, GGC, GGB, and then now the last one which is left is rent paid wala. Okay, so what is this particular section about? So guys, if you see the heading and you'll find that this particular sections talk about deduction in respect of rent paid. 1 second, ma'am. Rent paid, कुछ सुना सुना सा लग रहा है, something in relation to house rent allowance exemption. First of all, that is exemption which is given from the component of house rent allowance which we receive under section 1013 clause 13A, you get this exemption. Okay, that is different. Let's keep that aside for a certain time. Or let's try to correlate both of them. House rent allowance is the meaning that you are given an allowance and you have rental expenditure. Therefore, you claim certain exemption from that allowance. Correct? Yes, आपका employer allowance दे रहा है and you are claiming rent exemption based on those three conditions. you're claiming the exemption under clause 1013A. It might be fully exempt, it might be partly exempt, and if you don't have any rental payments going on, it would be fully taxable. This is what your house rent allowance says. Make sure all cool, done. But ma'am, what about this deduction in respect of rent paid? No, guys, necessarily it is not possible that every person who is living on rent would be getting house rent allowance. Okay, no. I may be a self-employed person who is living on rent. I cannot claim house rent allowance exemption because obviously it's not a component. I don't have salary, so I cannot claim an exemption from it. Or if I am even if an employee of an organization, but house rent allowance is not a component in my salary structure, I cannot claim exemption. Correct. So in both the scenario, what benefit a person has who is paying rent is this deduction under section 80GG. So now, even when you become a tax consultant forward or when you're doing your articleship, do inquire your client that if they have any rent commitments, are they paying any rent? Then they have a possibility to claim deduction under section 80GG if they do not have HRA. So one thing is clear that if you do not have HRA, then only you can go for 80GG. So if you have HRA allowance in your salary structure, then you will obviously claim exemption there because it is better to claim exemption there. I will tell you because वहाँ पे better amount of exemption मिलता है as compared to here where the amount is restricted to 60,000. I'll tell you slowly, and you will also feel कि नहीं ma'am, that is better definitely. So ये किसको मिलेगा? That is clear. Who is not getting HRA or who is not claiming HRA? Then why are we getting? Because the person, the SSC is paying rent. The SSC is paying rent. But what other condition a person has to take care of? So one major condition a person has to take care of is that for a house or for accommodation for which he's paying rent, for a accommodation for which he's paying rent is for his residence. रहने के लिए. It's not for a commercial shop, etc. It's for a residence, number one. And also, there should be no house owned by himself or his spouse or his minor child in that particular area. In that particular area or place where you are claiming the rent ka deduction. So if I say if I'm living in Delhi, like particular area, by area se means that a vicinity is in a way that a person cannot occupy his residence. अब suppose a person is working in Delhi, Gurgaon, it's like Mumbai and Thane, or it's like any outskirts of a city. I may have house in Delhi, but I'm living in Gurgaon. I can claim rent deduction for my Gurgaon house. But suppose I have a house in Delhi and then I'm claiming rent deduction of 80GG, that would be wrong. If my house is also in Delhi, my own house is also in Delhi, and my rental accommodation is also in Delhi, almost in the same vicinity, or in a place where the accommodation can be occupied, then I am not allowed to claim 80GG. I am not allowed to claim 80GG. Makes sense, na? अगर आपका खुद का घर है, why are you living on rent? And why should we give you a deduction under section 80GG? Now the question comes, ma'am, what is the quantum of deduction? The rent paid? Obviously not. Here also there is a quantum based on minimum of three items. Minimum of three items. That three are same rent paid minus 10% of आप सैलरी करते थे यहाँ पे करोगे adjusted total income or 20% of adjusted gross total income or 5,000 per month, that is at max 60,000. So whichever is the minimum of these three would be your deduction. Question आपको again नहीं बोला जाएगा calculate 80GG. You simply have to see what is the person, is this he is a self-employed, then and the deduction, the payment of rent paid is given in the question, then immediately you have to apply 80GG. So if I take this case of Mr. Ganesh, adjusted total income कैसे निकालेंगे? Adjusted total income has to be computed in the same manner which we did for 80G. Here also all gross total income minus that special income and minus your deductions except 80GG. Okay. So here we have a case of Mr. Ganesh, a businessman whose total income for the assessment year is 4,60,000. He paid a house rent of 12,000 per month in respect of a accommodation occupied by him at Mumbai. Compute the deduction allowable to him under Section 80GG for assessment year 24-25 if he has exercised the option of shifting out of default tax regime. Obviously, guys, for all the questions which you do, please make your assumption clear. Please, I'm saying again and again, if the question is silent, वैसे the question will tell you, and be attentive if it is not, if where it is written. But if the question is silent, give your assumption and do the question. And give your assumption means as a working note, give your assumption that I am assuming so and so SSC has opted out of Section 115 BSc or choose to remain under Section 115 BSc. Because all these deductions are available only if the person has opted out of from 115 BSc, except few, namely 80CC subsection 2, 80CCD subsection 2, and abhi aane mein we will see. Okay. So how will I compute the deduction? Simple hai. Very simple question. I have been given rent. I have been given my total adjusted total income before allowing the deductions under section 80GG. So let's see. यहाँ पे भी guys rent कितना है 12,000 per month. So 1,44,000 minus 10% of gross adjusted total income, 10% of 460, 46,000. तो एक आ गया 98,000. Then 25% of 460 comes to 11 lakh 15, 1 lakh 15,000. And then 5,000 per month for each month of accommodation of rent. That comes to 60,000. And most of the cases, when guys, lower would always be 60. So can I say maximum reduction under section 80GG would be 60,000? In this case, the answer is also 60,000. Got it, guys? Very simple section, but people do not tend to claim the benefit of it, and because the house rent allowance is rent given, so we know we have to calculate exemption. But a lot of time when a question comes of self-employed and it can be a full-fledged question of 16 marks, we have to be attentive. अगर rent deduction, rent payment है, 80GG would be there. But please go through it. And then she's written, the cessee or the spouse or his minor child or a HUF of which he is a member should not own any accommodation at a place where he ordinarily resides or perform duties of his office or employment or carries out his business or profession. So it cannot be said that it should be a city or it is a district. Ultimately, you have to see the essence of it. Generally, people take rented accommodation in the place where they have a job or where they have an employment so that they can cut off daily commuting basically. I don't think if you can relate, but to give an example, so Delhi is one area and then there is Manesar, which is almost located from at about 60-70 kilometers from Delhi or 100 kilometers from Delhi. And there are a lot of factories. A person would not do a general up and down every day, and it's a lot of travel somewhere 2.5 hours one side. So it can happen. A person can reside on an accommodation there for Monday to Friday and he can pay rent for the month there and then he can come over for weekend. So the idea of place is that it should not be in a way that जहाँ पे आप job करो आपका खुद का घर भी and still you're living at some rented accommodation. How would you justify that need of rented accommodation? Okay, so that's why they have made that thing. So I cannot restrict it to a city or a district, but from a general parlance, if the place which we're talking about is almost the same, it's a 3-4 kilometers का difference है, तो naturally you can travel day in day out, right? So उस हिसाब से. Good morning, Devraj. Okay. Time से आया करो, guys. ATGG clear? Fatafat, please, if you're making that table, please write deduction aspect of rent payment allowed to SSC, individual SSC generally, and allowed for those conditions. What other things you have to remember? What is adjusted GTI here, and the person should not have any other accommodation in that place in which in the place of his business, employment, etc. चले आगे. Now, guys, we're coming to the category of deduction in respect of certain incomes. Remember, while beginning of the class, I told you that there is this heading C of chapter 6A, where deductions are allowed in respect of certain incomes, because एक heading में deductions are allowed in respect of certain payments, which we saw from ATC to ATGGC. ATC to GGC. Yani, agar aap as an assessee, if you're making such payments or in making such investment, you will get the deduction based on the conditions. Correct. Now, if you have certain income included in your gross total income, then you will get deduction under heading C, chapter 6A. And guys, focus please. And to claim such deduction under heading C of chapter 6A, one thing is very important is that you have to file the return on time. And heading C of chapter 6A includes from section 80IA to section 80RRB. So the question is that 80IA extra and all are not there in your level. Only three or the four of the choosing section are here from 80IA to 80RRB. बहुत सारे IA, IB, IAC, then you have IE, 80JJA, 80JJAA, then you have 80RRB, 80QQB, you have 80M, 80LA, and so on. But at your level, there are 80JJA, 80RRB, 80QQB, which are there. Okay? So you don't have to remember all these from IA onwards. What you have to remember is all of these which comes under heading C of chapter 6A would be allowed as deduction if the return is filed within the due date. If the return is filed within the due date. और ये कहाँ लिखा है ये चीज कि it should be filed within the due date? This is written under section 80C, that if you want to claim the deduction under heading C, chapter 6A, you have to file the return within the due date. Got it? Now, the first section which we are doing under heading C, chapter 6A, is deduction under section 80JJAA. Please mark this as an important section because it is a bit technical. A question comes from it very often. So please mark it as important. Up, this deduction is again from my gross total income. First of all, if I have business income. So ये खाली किसको मिलेगी? Not everyone, but a person who has business income. Plus, he is liable to audit under section 44 AB. तो जिसका टैक्स ऑडिट है ना, obviously जिसका बिजनेस इनकम है, this deduction is only for those SSC 80JJAA. But deduction क्या है guys? Deduction in respect of employment of new employees. Employment of new employees. First of all, guys, let's talk about government. Government has one major challenge is employment. Like they want to generate more and more job, etc., etc. But now the question is that generating of employment cannot only be solely be done by government. So government ने क्या किया? We started with in mind that okay, the organization which will generate employment, we will give them the deduction. The organization which will generate employment, we will give them the deduction as an incentive or as a reward that yes, you have generated employment for us. Okay, so this is only for the people who are into business, who are getting the accounts audited and are generating employment अब डिडक्शन क्या मिलेगा एम्प्लॉयमेंट अब अपने आप को यू हैव टू थिंक योरसेल्फ एज एन एसएससी हु इज जनरेटिंग एम्प्लॉयमेंट सो ऑब्वियसली यू वुड बी पेइंग सैलरी you are the assessee who is generating employment, you will be paying salary, which you can claim as deduction under section 37(1), any expenditure for business, etc., incurred during the year. Correct. But you will get additional deduction. You would be eligible to get additional deduction for this salary. तो सबसे पहले तो हमें देखना है कि एक तो सैलरी, अब सपोज आई पेड 4 lakhs rupees to new employees. So 4 lakh is deductible while computing my PGBP income under section 37 subsection 1. Absolutely correct. But also a certain deduction for this 4 lakh additionally would be given under section 80JJAA. Under section 80JJAA. So यहाँ पे you have to understand that here there is a benefit over and above the amount which I'm paying, and I'm already claiming as deduction from my profits, but I will get उसी amount का benefit under 80JJAA. But the question is, यहाँ पे अगर मैं फिर से heading पढ़ूं, why I'm reading it again and again, deduction in respect of employment, in respect of new employees. In respect of new employees. It's again and again focusing on the word new employees. So basically this section came in through Finance Bill 2011, whereby unka motive tha that they should incentivize people who are generating employment. Ab new employees की बात हो रही है यहाँ पे, that when you are giving, and new employee मतलब there is an increase in your workforce. Earlier there were 100 people, now there are 120 people. So आपको जो deduction benefit मिलेगा, that would be for those 20 people which you have hired during the year. That is the additional employees which you get on board, उनका deduction मिलेगा. This you have to make clear that here we are talking about additional employees. Additional employees का क्या मतलब है? Simple सा बात है. If I have just started the business, it's a new business, so what all employees I hire, all of them are additional employees, correct? And if it's a situation of a already running business, if it's a situation of a already running business or an existing business, then closing minus opening का जो difference होगा, that would be my additional employees. क्योंकि सबसे पहले guys यहाँ पे first thing is you have to identify whether you have generated new employment or not. And how will you think that you have generated new employment or not? You have to see whatever employees are there you have hired. If it's a new business, obviously, if I started my business today, what all employees I hire today are my additional employees, correct? Whatever employees I hired during the year are my additional employees because all of them are the new employment. And if I'm already in a running business, who would be the new employment? Obviously, if साल के end में 300 लोग थे, साल के beginning में 200 लोग थे. At the end of the year, there were 300 people, and now at the beginning of the year, there were 200 people. That means I've generated 100 new employments, correct? So, pehle you have to identify that whether there has been additional employment or not. Second thing which you have to see is, I told you that you will get the deduction of the cost, as in the emoluments, as in the money which you pay to the, or the salary or the wage, whatever work you want to use, which you pay to the employees, to these additional employees. So additional employee pay, jitna additional cost hai, employment cost, that is eligible. इन कितना डिडक्शन मिलेगा? एडिशनल एम्प्लॉयमेंट पे जितना एडिशनल एम्प्लॉयमेंट कॉस्ट लगे, मतलब पहले यू विल हैव टू आइडेंटिफाई what are my additional employees, then whatever money I paid to them during the year, whatever cost which I have paid to them, emoluments which money, because the section says emoluments paid or payable. So whatever monetary money or monetary salary has been given to them has to be considered. And uska 30%, guys, 30% of additional employment cost would be given to me as deduction. This would be my eligible deduction under section 80JJA. So step 1, identify additional employees. Steps 2 is obviously identify the cost to additional employees. And step 3 is that 30% of this additional employee cost would be eligible for deduction under section 80JJA, not only for the first year, but for 3 consecutive years. For 3 consecutive years. So in a way, एक तो डिडक्शन मुझे मिल गया अंडर सैलरी अंडर सेक्शन 37, एंड उसी अमाउंट का द एम्प्लॉयमेंट कॉस्ट व्हिच आई हैव बोर्न ऑन सच एडिशनल एम्प्लॉय is allowed as deduction in 3 parts in 30% each in the 3 consecutive years beginning from the year when the additional employee cost was generated. So for example, I gave you an example at the beginning that suppose additional employees का cost मेरा आया 4 lakh. So 4 lakh is eligible for deduction under section 37 क्योंकि वो salary है, correct? But also this 4 lakh of additional employee cost would be allowed as deduction for 120, 120 and 120 for 3 consecutive years. Say for example, in this year, we're talking about assessment year 23-24, suppose additional employee cost was this. So एक तो assessment year 23-24 में I'll get this deduction. Then the same deduction I'll get in assessment year 24-25 and in assessment year 25-26. So in a way, whatever additional employee cost which I am bearing, उसका 90% extra deduction मिल रहा है over the course of 3 years. Over the course of 3 years. अब question is कि क्या मैम all the employees would be additional employees? Because the question, guys, you have to remember is that back to the intention is of the government to generate employment, right? तभी वो आपको incentivize कर रहे हैं. अब generate employment से you are hiring a director at a crores of salary, वो government को उसके लिए incentivize नहीं करना. Government want that you generate basic employment. That is important, correct? And guys, also, government want that there should be a stable employment, a full-time stable employment, in a way that a person who has joined you for a sufficient period during the year, has joined you based on your regular payroll, you have opened his PF account, etc., etc. So, if an employee is not satisfying these conditions, then they would not be eligible for additional employee. कहने का मतलब है that we understood that, ma'am, increase in the employment has to be considered as additional employee. Thank you for explaining that. We understood. But what all employees would not be considered as additional employees for the purpose of section 80JJ8? मैंने 100 employees hire करे during the year. But if from these 100 employees, I have hired 50 employees who are having a salary package of 9, say roughly 20 lakhs in annum, they should not be considered for this deduction, because again, incentivize the people who are generating employment and making the people with a lower salary empowered, correct? So यहाँ पे additional employees, once you identify are 100, then you have to exclude. Before you come to the cost, you have to exclude certain employees. Who would be those certain employees? From the additional employees which you have identified, you have to exclude certain employees. Who would, यानी इनका benefit आपको 80JJA के लिए नहीं मिलेगा. The benefit of these people would not be eligible to be claimed for 80JJA. 100 employees extra है, fine. अब इस 100 employees से I will filter out that who are not eligible for the benefit of 80JJAA. कौन से होंगे? Any employee whose emoluments यानी salary or remuneration, whatever thing you want to call, is more than 25,000 per month. More than 25,000 per month. So if अगर इस additional employee में कोई person है who has a salary of 30,000 per month, he would be excluded. Simple. Then any employee for whom the entire contribution, as in the full contribution, is paid by the government, under the employee pension scheme, notified in accordance with the provisions of EPF and Miscellaneous Act. Basically, pension scheme में contribution जाता है. If the pension contribution entirely is paid by government, that employee is also excluded. Then, which employee is excluded from additional employees? Who does not participate in RPF, मतलब जिसका provident fund account नहीं खोला by the employee or by the employer, that person is also out. And also the employee who is not engaged during the year for a minimum period of 240 days. So if he is engaged for a period of less than 240 days during the year, he would be not considered as additional employee for that year. But seasoned industries में guys, seasoned industries कौन सी होती है? जिसमें they are not for full time industry, they are for certain weather or certain time period. जैसे footwear industry है, or apparel industry है, or leather product industry. Or leather product industry cannot generate employment for the entire year because generally leather products are required only towards the peak winter season, correct? Or for a certain period. Or say apparel industry may, suppose if you have an apparel industry of making shawls, woolen shawls, so obviously employment is not required for a full year period. So us cases may the condition is 150 days. So can I say in a way that from the additional employees, who will I exclude or who will I not consider for the benefit of 80JJ? One, जिसका salary is more than 25K per month. किलोमीटर पर मीटर नहीं है ये. 25K per month, जिसका salary is more than 25K per month. Second, I will exclude a person who has worked for less than 240 days for general industry or less than 150 days in a seasonal industry during the year. I will exclude the employee who does not participate in PF. And I will exclude the employees whose pension is fully given by government, by central government. ठीक है, ये employees को exclude कर दूंगी. अब out of 100, suppose 50 employees are those who have salary more than 25,000. हट गए. Out of 100, there are 10 employees who joined towards the month in the month of December. So obviously उनकी employment is less than 240 days. They are also gone. So 100 में से 50 gone, 10 gone. Then out of 100 employees, 10 are those who are not participating in PF. Those 10 are also gone. So 100 minus 50 minus 10. And that's it. So अब ये वाले employees होंगे जिसका additional cost निकालोगे. कितना cost होगा? जो भी salary you are paying, उसका 30% would be allowed as deduction. एक question करते हैं so that it gets more clear. Again and again, guys, I'm saying that question में कहीं नहीं लिखा होगा. You have to compute ATJJ automatically. You have to simply see what are the benefit which would be allowed. And secondly, they will not say कि यहाँ पे 240 days का check करो या 150 days का. Make it as a habit very clearly. Whenever you're doing any question of income tax or rather any GST question also, see who is the assessee. See if anywhere his residential status is given. See what does he do. If he's a business of what? Manufacturing of computers. Because ऐसे questions आएंगे additional depreciation का or 35AD ka, no one will say that you have to apply this and tell us. You have to see what figures are fitting in under which section, what facts are figuring under which section. So if this question is here, Mr. A has commenced the business for so-and-so product, manufacturing of so-and-so product on 1st of April 23. He has 350 new employees during the year the details of whom are given to you as such. 350 employees का details दिया हुआ है कि 75 were employed on 1st April 2023 for regular basis. Total emoluments 24,000. 125 were employed on 1st May, emolument 26,000. 50 employees were casual employees and they were employed at an emolument of 24,500. 100 employees were employed on 1st of September 2023. They were for an अब ये टोटल 350 employees में से I have to see who ये सारे additional employees हैं, but who are eligible additional employee or who would be considered, whose employee cost would be considered for the purpose of ATJJAA. First of all, should I consider these 75 employees who are employed on 1st April 2023 and his salary is more than 24,000? Yes. Why? Because condition, चारों condition में there are following in. ठीक है, यहाँ पे clearly लिखा हुआ है that regular employees participate in RPF while the casual employees do not. So all four conditions have to be matched for them to be an eligible additional employee. So for the 75 employees who were hired for a monthly salary of 24,000 per month, मतलब 12 महीने from April to March, इनका cost would be considered for ATJJAA? Yes, because all the conditions are fulfilled. Since these second wala, will I consider 26,000? No, because 25,000 or less than 25,000 का salary होना चाहिए या 25,000 or less का salary होना चाहिए for this particular employee, even if they are new employees, but they are not eligible for ATJJAA because the salary is more than 25,000. Second, even if they are new employees and have employed for more than 240 days, but they would not be eligible. Why? Because these are casual workers not contributing to RPF. Correct? And last, which is my 100 employees employed on 1st September 2023, will they be eligible? The answer is no, because they have been employed for less than 240 days. So only these employees, 75 into 12 into 24,000, which comes to 2 crore 16 lakhs would be additional employee cost. And what is the deduction allowed? Which is 30%, which is 64 lakh 80,000. Okay. Computer deduction, if any, available on the profits derived from the manufacture of computers, that is 75 lakhs, and the total turnover is 10.16. अब मुझे कैसे पता चला? I have to compute ATJJA. First of all, JJAA. First of all, the business is given. Secondly, they have given me the new employee cost. Okay. Thirdly, it has been clear that the person is into profits. And fourthly, since the turnover is more than such a high amount, that means iska tax audit bhi ho raha hai. So naturally, all the conditions are fulfilled. Naturally, I got to know that I have to give ATJJAA. But if the question says, what would be your answer if Mr. A has commenced the business of manufacturing of footwear? अब मैन्युफैक्चरिंग ऑफ फुटवेयर है तो वहां पे मिनिमम एम्प्लॉयमेंट पीरियड ड्यूरिंग द ईयर फॉर एन एम्प्लॉय टू बी एलिजिबल एज एन एडिशनल एम्प्लॉय इज 150 days, not 240 but 150 days. तो इस केस में गाइस क्या होगा? दिस एस इज इनटू manufacturing of footwear, so along with the first condition, which is this, these employees would also qualify for 30% deduction. Why? Because less than 25,000, 150 days का minimum employment आ गया, contributing to PF आ गया, so naturally these employees would not be eligible for deduction. So 24,000 per month for how many employees? 100 employees. For how many months the cost has been incurred? 6 months. September, नहीं 7 months आ गया ना, September, October, November, December, January, February, March and April. 7 months नहीं है, that's 8 months है. Mm, 24,000 into 100 into 7, which comes to 1 crore 68 lakhs, और इसका 30% हो गया 50 lakh 40,000, which this and this total deduction under 80 JJAA would be 1 crore 15 lakh 20,000. So you see, such a huge quantum of deduction you are getting under 80JJA, and it's an additional deduction for a cost already incurred and in the form of salary, which is anyway eligible under Section 37. But additional employee का additional cost would be allowed as deduction. But additional employees में से कौन हट जाएगा? Any employee for a salary of more than 25,000, any employee who is not contributing to RPF, any employees whose pension is fully sponsored by government, fully given by government, or any employee who has worked for less than 240 days or 150 days during the year. कोई doubt, guys? एक बार question देखो, and one point is still left, which I will let you know. One point, guys, is still left, which I will let you know. But उसके अलावा 80 JJA में कोई doubt? Prashant, when in general you have to consider 240 days, but when an industry is a season industry मतलब जो industry का works सिर्फ some time के लिए होता है, like apparel, footwear and leather. Three products, apparel, footwear and leather. Then you have to consider 150 days. Yes, all assessees who are into business and are having tax audit, everyone will get the deduction if he, even if it's at assessee is an individual, HUF, AOP, BOI, because the idea is you're generating employment, you will get the deduction. Harshit, absolutely correct. Suppose I have 100 employees at the beginning of the year. I employed 50. But 60 left. But 60 left. So naturally, 150 minus 60, 90 employees are there at the end of the year. So I have not generated any additional employment. So there would be no deduction for that particular year for those employees which even if you have hired at 50, उनका नहीं मिलेगा. So naturally, अगर आप किसी को निकाल के आप employment दे रहे हो, that is not generating employment. Generating employment means that you have generated an additional employment over and above the employees which you already have. But over any amount which is paid or payable to employees, only that amount which you have to consider. Ashish, you have to understand that you're not giving the deduction for the employment which the cost which would be generating for the next year or the next year. If you clearly read the beginning of the section, it says 30% आपने additional employment जिस year में generate करा. That suppose you have generated the additional employment in previous year 23-24. that additional employment का cost would be eligible for deduction in a way in 3 years, that is 30% each year. नेक्स्ट ईयर अगर वो उससे ज्यादा भी हो जाता है, डज नॉट मैटर, बट द पॉइंट विच हैव टू रिमेंबर इज दैट व्हाट एडिशनल एम्प्लॉयमेंट कॉस्ट विच यू पेड इन 23-24, that would be allowed as additional deduction for 3 consecutive years, 30% each year. मैंने जब आपको वो 4 लाख का एग्जाम्पल दिया था, आई डिड नॉट चेंज द फिगर, आई सेड 120 फॉर ईयर 1, 120 फॉर ईयर 2 एंड 120 फॉर ईयर 3 if I'm generating additional employment. And this is what written at the beginning of the topic also. Amount equal to 30% of additional employee cost incurred in the course of such business in the previous year would be allowed for 3 assessment year, including the assessment year relevant to the previous year in which the employment is provided. Yes, Ankur, each time you are creating an additional employment, you will get the deduction. करेक्ट रीटू, वहां पे लिखा हुआ है एम्प्लॉइज, वो कैजुअल रेगुलर अगर वो आरपीएफ में पार्टिसिपेट कर रहे हैं, देन यस. अगर इफ ट्रेनी इज आल्सो देयर हु इज पार्टिसिपेटिंग इन आरपीएफ एंड हिज सैलरी इज लेस देन 25,000, यस डेफिनेटली. ऋतुराज, आई होप योर आंसर क्वेश्चन इज आंसर्ड. सॉरी सॉरी. Anuradha, people who have salary of more than 25,000 are excluded from this benefit. गवर्नमेंट उनको इंसेंटिवाइज कर रही है जो लोगों को छोटे लेवल पे जॉब दे रहे हैं. If I'm hiring a director at a crore rupees of salary, this is not for them, okay? So people are excluded from them. EE में acquiring and constructing both. सबसे पहले तो करंट ईयर में कैसे रिडक्शन निकालते हैं योर लेवल, दैट क्वेश्चन वुड कम. प्लीज प्लीज अगेन, मैं हमेशा कहती हूँ पहले बेसिक चीजें अंडरस्टैंड करो. पहले बेसिक कॉन्सेप्ट फाउंडेशन लेवल को क्लियर रखो. दैट हाँ, आई नो व्हाट इज द मीनिंग ऑफ दिस सेक्शन, आई नो व्हाट बेनिफिट इज गिवन इन दैट सेक्शन, एंड आई नो व्हाट पॉइंट हैव टू कंसिडर दिस सेक्शन फॉर. देन वी विल मूव अहेड. किसी का कोई क्वेश्चन लेफ्ट हो गया? आई थिंक बहुत सारे क्वेश्चन देगा जिस पे. टेक योर टाइम. इसमें एक बार और क्वेश्चन देखना है, प्लीज गो थ्रू इट, नो प्रॉब्लम. तो किसी ने पूछा है कि मैम अगर नेक्स्ट ईयर वो 240 डेज से कम वर्क करते हैं, नो प्रॉब्लम. The point is that if he's working, if an additional employee you have considered during the year who is working for more than 240 days, the criteria is for the period when you have generated that employment and or in the first year of appointment. It's not for the subsequent year. So even if he's there for a less than 240 days in the subsequent years, then also you can claim the additional employee cost, because ultimately you are claiming the additional employee cost not for the subsequent years. You are claiming the additional employee cost which you bought or which you bear in the first year of appointment. That is being claimed in 30% for 3 years. You have to clear this thing in your head कि नेक्स्ट ईयर की एम्प्लॉयमेंट का 30% उस एम्प्लॉय का नहीं मिलेगा, नहीं. जो additional employment which has been generated this year would be allowed as deduction in 30% this year, 30% next year, and 30% next to next year. सिंपल. अब नेक्स्ट ईयर एडिशनल एम्प्लॉयमेंट हुआ तो उस साल का उस एडिशनल एम्प्लॉय का कॉस्ट का 30% दैट ईयर, देन उसके नेक्स्ट एंड देन उसके नेक्स्ट. So you have to get that clarity, then only it would be clear, because ultimately is you are giving them 240 days of employment, you are allowed to claim 30% deduction, so in a way 90% deduction. अब एक क्वेश्चन यहाँ पे आएगा, which is written where? Particularly section 115BAC, guys. Remember, this section is available to all the employees, whether they're opting for 115BAC or they're to all the employers, whether they're opting for 115BAC or whether they're not opting for 115BAC. So, in addition to 80CCH subsection 2, 80CCD subsection 2, 80JJAA is also one section in which the deduction is allowed to 115BAC wala also. Ashish, is it clear? संतोष, सब क्लियर है? करेक्ट. अगेन एंड अगेन गाइस, सबसे पहले क्वेश्चन में मैंने यही बोला, 4 लाख इज एन एडिशनल एम्प्लॉयमेंट कॉस्ट. जस्ट वन सेकेंड, जस्ट वन सेकेंड. So sorry guys, हाँ, again and again I'm saying 4 lakh is the additional employment cost for that year. ठीक है, उसको 120 120 120 ईयर 1 to 3 में मिलेगा. सिंपल, इसमें कोई कंफ्यूजन ही नहीं है. Ruturaj, it is in respect of an income. Why? Because it is for those person who are having business income. Correct. Again and again, I'm saying that total additional deduction is coming in a way of 90% if you're generating additional employment for more than 240 days in a year for employees who are working at a salary of less than 25,000 and are contributing to RPF. Simple. So, एक और चीज, last and important चीज which is left under this particular section is this. Employed the previous year for less than 240 days or 150 days as the case may be. 150 कब लगेगा? When he's into business of leather apparel or footwear, 3 चीजें, ठीक है? But is employed for 250 or 150 days as the case may be in the immediately succeeding year, he shall be deemed to have been additional employee of the succeeding year. Accordingly, the employer would be entitled to deduction of 30% of additional employee cost of such employees for 3 years from the succeeding year. Same question में where we were seeing a 240 days criteria and we did not give a reduction for the employees who were employed on 1st September 2023. Why? Because their employment period was less than 240 days, correct? We did not give them that deduction. Same question में where we were seeing इनका 24,000, these 100 employees who were taken on payroll for a monthly amount of 24,000. We did not give a reduction. Why? Because they were employed for less than 240 days. But if the same 100 employees are there for 240 days or more in the next year, that is in the previous year 24-25, they would be considered as additional employee of next year, that is the year 24-25, और जो भी cost उन पे incur हो रहा है, whatever cost is incurred on them would be considered for the deduction as ATJJAA for the 3 years beginning from 24-25. Simple. So ये जो next year, suppose obviously they should be for less than 25,000 next year, they would be considered as additional employee of next year. So जो 240 days से कम के criteria में fall होते हैं during the current previous year, if they are employed for 240 days or more in the next year, they would be considered as new employee of the next year, not of this year. And 3 years का deduction would start from their salary from the next year. So next 3 years में deduction would be given 24-25, 25-26 and 26-27. So now quickly, if I have to sum up ATJJAA for all of you, it's as simple as that you will get additional employment cost incurred during the year, the 30% deduction for 3 consecutive years if you are a person who is into business and has tax audit. ठीक है? Business and have tax audit, additional employment cost का 30% मिलेगा for 3 consecutive years. But additional employment में क्या आएगा? One more thing guys, वो एक point हो रहेगा. Additional employees who would be the employees who have the additional as an increase in employees. If it's a new employment, all the employees are the new employees. If it's a new business, sorry, all the employees are new employees. But if I'm into an existing business, whatever is the difference of opening and closing, that would be the additional employees. Once I've calculated additional employees, उसमें से क्या क्या I will minus people who have salary of more than 25,000, minus people not contributing to RPF, minus people not working or working for less than, or I should say working for less than 240 days or 150 days as the case may be, and minus एक वो pension वाला चीज, ठीक है? उसके अलावा guys, one more thing very very important you have to remember which got skipped, that the salary to them should be paid in any mode other than cash. Other than cash or bearer check. Okay, once I've considered who are all additional employees, उनका cost निकालूंगी, उसका 30% would be my deduction which I would claim for 3 consecutive years, same amount would be claimed for 3 consecutive years. अब मैं next year आई, तो next year में what all were my additional employees, उनका cost would be claimed as deduction for 3 consecutive years. Simple. So if in this case, the additional employee cost comes to 4 lakh per annum. So this 120 would be claimed in year 1. year 2 and year 3. Same 120 each. Guys, is it clear? बहुत सिंपल सा सेक्शन है, एक बारी और देख लो. आई वेंट वेरी स्लो ऑन दिस सेक्शन बिकॉज आई रियली वांट यू टू एब्जॉर्ब इट. थोड़ा सा टेक्निकल हो जाता है समटाइम्स, दैट्स व्हाई. Ninad, ATJJA is a deduction. You cannot claim if you have gross total income as negative or zero. Prince, I hope your doubt is clear. Nancy, what is your query? I believe I took it. Yes, if अब 30 वो 3 installments तो चल रही है. Suppose year 1 to whatever employment I've generated in this year, that would be eligible for deduction for this year, next year, and next 2 year. Then whatever employment I've generated, additional employment I've generated in the next year would be eligible for deductions for 3 consecutive years, including the next year. So that will go on and on. No, Ruturaj, not in that case. Manohar, again and again, I'm saying, please, I think you were the one who asked the training cost also. I'm saying again and again, whatever is the monetary salary payable to them, because this emolument word says salary paid or payable to them. So, अगर आप कोई benefit दे रहे हो as such, that has to be excluded from the understanding of the section. If you're paying them, whatever emoluments you're paying, like salary, allowances, etc., those have to be considered, but not your gratuity, leave encashment, वो सब नहीं. Basic salary emolument, guys. और 5,000 तक की सैलरी में आप क्या क्या components, what else you would include? Harish, additional employment generate हो गया. Once the additional employment is generated, the cost of it would be allowed as deduction for 3 years. And guys, tax audit हो रहा है. First of all, you cannot just claim any amount हवा में. Properly CA certified amount ही निकलेगा, so don't worry about that. चले आगे भी. Again and again I'm saying XYZ multiple scenarios से अपने आप को please confuse करना बंद करो. Please stick to first the essence of it. That did you get the essence of the section? ऐसे questions आते, sometimes I feel that I'm giving advisory consultancy I'm providing. Very good, but first that people are showing interest and trying to understand and relate to. Telling guys, sure. ऐड होती जाएगी अगर फ्यूचर में इनकर करेगी ना, मतलब आपने आज इनकर करा एक कॉस्ट, उसको 3 years में यू आर गेटिंग द डिडक्शन 30% फॉर 3 years. नो प्रॉब्लम. इसमें कहाँ कंफ्यूजन है? The person who has worked for less than 240 days in the current year, but has worked more than 240 days in the next year, as in the upcoming year, he would be, even if he's employed today, he would be considered as additional employee for the next year. As simple as that. अब उसको year 3 के साथ क्यों merge करके, why are you getting confused? Back later if I have time. Okay. I really went extremely slow and dedicated good time on this particular section because I wanted you people to understand. About hypothetical scenarios, say please, it's a request. Don't confuse yourself. Next section, which is available in respect of income, is 80QQB. Section 80QQB. Again, I told you 80 IAC, 80 RRB. There are a lot of sections, but which enter are three only, which is 80QQB. This is also not allowed for people who are not opting out from 115 BAC. Basically, if they're paying tax as per 115 BAC, they cannot claim deduction under this section. So ये कौन सी income पे मिलेगा मैम? If you have royalty income. So if a person has royalty income, then only they will get deduction under this particular section. 80QQB, guys, please focus. First of all, this is allowed only to resident individual. Please clearly write only to resident individual. Second of all, what is this deduction, ma'am? The deduction in respect of royalty income, we understand, of authors of certain books other than textbooks. सबसे पहले, if a, you have to understand what is the concept of royalty. Royalty क्या होता है? That you have naturally written something out. If I talk about in the context of books, it is your work of art, your mehnat. Then what you do, if you want to get it published, you give the rights, because any work which is true and honest of your own hard work is your copyright on it. You give the copyright of that particular work to a publishing house. Then what publishing house does? Publishing house print that book, but they give you either royalty can be given to you as a lump sum amount, एक ही बारी में one time amount दे देते हैं for you to give the rights of that particular book or for that particular work which you have written, or they give you royalty on certain books, as in number of copies sold पे royalty मिलेगा या number of copies printed पे royalty मिलेगा, like that. ठीक है? Or they can give you certain advance non-refundable royalty. So royalty can be given as lump sum, can be given as a normal royalty based on certain parameters or a copyright fees, whatever name you want to call it. Okay? Or it can be given as one-time lump sum. Okay? So all those royalty which comes under these three criteria would be eligible for deduction under 80QQB. Now, I am an author. I am getting royalty. So it would be my professional income. It will go under my PGBP. Simple. And I will claim expenditure, etc. what are allowed. Simple. But I am eligible to claim deduction under section 80QB for the royalty which I have, since in my gross total income royalty is included, I can claim 80QQB pay deduction for the royalty. But again, back to it, royalty clear हो गया, authors clear हो गया, but for only books other than textbooks. So कोई भी book हो guys, if it's a literature book, literary book, if it's a artistic book, if it's a scientific book, everything would be allowed as deduction. But other than textbooks, the meaning here that not school textbooks. If I'm writing and I'm getting money for that, that is not eligible here. If I'm writing in magazines, if I'm writing in newspapers, if I'm writing for ads, brochures, pamphlets, that is not to be included in the understanding of the term royalty. It is not to be included in understanding the term royalty. Simple. Now, what is the deduction? Deduction is simple. The amount of royalty which you get, the amount of royalty a person gets received during the year, or 3 lakhs, whichever is lower. Whichever is lower. Deduction is the amount of royalty or 3 lakhs, whichever is lower. Lump sum के case में. In case of lump sum. But in case lump sum मतलब one time royalty मिल गया. But in case the royalty which I have received includes royalty based on certain criteria, like they give me royalty of at a percentage of copies printed. ठीक है, उस केस में there are three criteria. One is obviously royalty received. One is 15%. 15% of value of books sold. 15% of value of books sold, or 3 lakhs, whichever is lower. Or 3 lakhs, whichever is lower. I'm नहीं समझ आया. Let me give an example. दोनों का examples लेंगे guys. If a person has received a royalty of 5 lakhs during a year, which is a lump sum royalty. ठीक है? A person has received a royalty of 5 lakhs, which is a lump sum royalty. So this will go under PGBP, and 3 lakh ka deduction would be allowed under 80 QQB. Simple. ठीक है? 3 lakh का deduction would be allowed under 80 QQB. कोई doubt? No. But अब royalty मुझे lump sum नहीं मिला. The contract says that I would be given, say, 18% royalty of number of books printed during the year based on MRP. ठीक है? अब मुझे suppose 100 books were printed during the year and उनका MRP was, say, 200 rupees. तो मुझे कितना रॉयल्टी मिलना चाहिए था? और से 1000 बुक्स फॉर प्रिंटिंग ड्यूरिंग द ईयर. एंड एमआरपी वाज 200 रुपीज और मुझे रॉयल्टी मिला 18%. तो 1000 बुक्स पे रॉयल्टी मिला 18%, which is 36,000. करेक्ट? एनी डाउट? परफेक्ट. अब इस केस में, इस सिनेरियो में क्या रिडक्शन होगा? Whenever royalty is received by any mode other than lump sum. Lump sum के लिए तो simple है, royalty received or 3 lakh, whatever is lower. But whenever a royalty is received by any mode other than lump sum mode, वहां पे instead of royalty received in 3 lakhs, you have to make one more check that the royalty should not be more than 15% of the value of book sold. अब मुझे मिला जो मर्जी है, but another thing is 15% of value of book sold. अब suppose printed 1000 था, but sale of only 800 books happened at an, instead of MRP, they were sold at a price of 180. So naturally, as per 80 QQB, one more condition out of the 3 conditions the amount is coming to 15% of 800 of 180, which is 21,600 only. So even if I have received a royalty of 36,000, but 3 conditions 36,000 is the royalty received, 21,600 is the amount which is coming as per 15% of the value of books sold. Value मतलब जो भी price थे वो sale हुआ of books sold, and last amount is coming to 3 lakhs. So naturally, which is lower? 21,600 is lower. That would be allowed as deduction. And 3 lakh is not for each different royalty I'm receiving. 3 lakh is in total. So if I've written one book, I've written another book, and I've also got lump sum, सबका मिला के 3 lakh total would be allowed as deduction. So if I take this case, कोई डाउट पहले यहाँ तक? लमसम के केस में क्या है? सिंपल, whatever received and 3 lakh, whichever is less. But whenever a royalty is received in other than lump sum case, then वहाँ पे 3 criteria are there. उसका minimum would be allowed as deduction, and इसका example is this. This example is not there in the book. If you want, you can copy. हेमलता, अगर आपने एक फर्स्ट ईयर एडिशनल एम्प्लॉय कॉस्ट निकाल लिया, उसको 30% 3 साल डिडक्शन देना है. एज सिंपल एज दैट. If question is silent on ROR or ROR, generally if it's written resident in India, it is considered to be in ROR. And always give your assumptions. जब मैं यहाँ पे भी क्वेश्चन लिखती हूँ रेजिडेंट इंडिविजुअल, दैट मीन्स इन ROR इंडिविजुअल. There can be a scenario that the royalty is not received in India. I can receive royalty from a foreign author also. Correct? I can receive a royalty from a foreign author also. Naturally, this can happen. मेरे को royalty बाहर मैंने Penguin India तो is Indian. Any common international publisher, Bloomsbury. हाँ. For to them, I have given my book. Okay, so it's an international publisher. To them, I have given my book. So I will receive royalty from outside India in that case, correct? One condition that they have made it mandatory for the royalty which is received from outside India is that for it to be eligible for deduction under 80QQB, you have to bring that to India. That is, that should be repatriated to India within 6 months. Okay. Within a period of 6 months from the end of the previous year in which such income is earned or within such further period as the competent authority, which is RBI in most of the case, may allow in this behalf for the purpose of claiming deduction under this section. Ma'am, matlab, suppose I have received royalty of $400 during the year. Obviously, it's my income, I will show it. But whether can I claim deduction under 80 QQB for it? The condition is that that $400 of royalty which I've received should be repatriated to my Indian account, should be repatriated to my Indian account or to any account which RBI, which is coming under RBI. So that would be considered to be repatriated in India. That means you have converted into Indian currency. Then you can claim deduction of that particular royalty under 80 QQB. So royalty outside India should be repatriated to India within a period of 6 months from the end of the previous year in which it is earned. So suppose if I'm talking about a royalty which is earned by 31st of March, obviously that has to be repatriated to India by 30th of September. And by repatriate means either that $400 should be converted and either be brought up into an Indian bank account or it should be sent to any account, but it is approved by RBI. Got it? Any doubt, guys? So if I take this question of Akash earned a royalty of 2,88,000 from a foreign country for a book authored by him, being a work of literary nature. The rate of royalty is 18% of value of books. The expenditure incurred by him in earning this royalty is 40,000. Okay. Uh, the amount remitted to India is 2,30,000. The remaining amount was not remitted until 31st March 2025. This is an interesting question. Compute the amount included in the gross total income of a cash and the amount of deduction which he will be eligible under 80 QQB if he does not exercise the option of, if he has exercised the option of shifting out of the default tax regime. First of all, GTI में कितना आएगा guys? GTI में simple, the royalty which is received 2 lakh earned during the year 2,88,000 यानी business income में जो जाएगा 2,88,000 minus 40,000 of expenditure, total 2,48,000. So this 2,48,000 is included in my gross total income. Now we have to see what is the royalty ka deduction which would be allowed. Getting guys? Okay. Now इसमें से कितना royalty eligible है which has been brought to India? 230. ठीक है वो तो सही है बट ये 18% वाला प्रॉब्लम भी तो है ना guys. 18% of the value of books sold. So this 288 which I have received is 18% of X amount. That is coming to 288. So X amount is ultimately जितने पे मुझे royalty मिला is 2,88,000 divided by 18%. which is 16 lakhs, correct? So maybe the value of books sold is 16 lakhs. But what is my eligible amount is? That is 15% of the value of books sold. So 15% of this comes to 2,40,000. So 15% comes to 240. But what is the royalty of this from this 240 which has been brought to India? Only 230. Correct? Up to 30 पे guys, already 40,000 as expense has been claimed under deduction. तो बचा कितना रॉयल्टी एलिजिबल 190. 190 and 3 lakh में which is lower? Obviously 190 is lower. So what is the deduction under section 80 QQB? 190. Got it guys? Simple and easy. Now instead of this 240, अब instead of this 240 had the value been come to 220. So अब 220 में से 40 180 deduction देते even if the value repatriated to India is 230, but since it is restricted to that 15%, then only 220 would have been considered. But since it was coming more than 230, so 30 has been considered. Whatever is repatriated to India, that would be considered subject to that is within that 15% of the book value. और उसमें से obviously 40,000 claim हो चुका है. So remaining 190,000 is yet to be claimed as deduction. एक बारी guys देखो ये question, कोई भी doubt है please ask. कमलेश बुक में लिखा हुआ है that 15% of the royalty only would be subject to the deduction. 3 lakhs, 15% या royalty received and repatriated to India. पहले तो 15% में तो निकालना पड़ेगा ना मेरे को. But question says 18% of the book value. So how will I come to 15%? 18% of X is coming to 288. X is 16 lakhs. So 15% of X, which is value of book sold, would be my answer. Eligible. So there is, guys, another royalty ka reduction, Ashish, royalty ka reduction in the section 80 RRB also. So the person is claiming royalty ka deduction under this section. He cannot claim royalty ka deduction under any other section. Prashant, 18% of value of book sold is given to be 2,88,000. Simple. So what is the value of book sold? 2,88,000 divided by 18%. And what I am eligible is only 15% of the value of book sold. So 16 lakh, 15%. Exactly similar section, rather easier section is there, which is 80 RRB. Which is in relation to deduction in respect of royalty on patents. 80 QQB is for royalty on authors, which is received for their books other than textbooks. But royalty patents पे भी मिलती है. Guys, patents क्या होते हैं? When you invent something or when something is unique to your formula, you get that patent. You get that patent. The first inventor get or the investor maybe get that patent, the patentee. Okay, so then if he has to sell that right to someone, he gets a royalty on it. He or she gets a royalty on it. Again, this is only allowed to resident individual. Suppose I've created a formula, okay, a formula for some process, or suppose I have done an R&D into cars and I've created an engine which is exclusive, which works on hydro, petroleum, etc., etc. And then I give the information of how to prepare that engine and I get royalty in return. That royalty, guys, would be deductible under section 80 RRB. Under section 80 RRB. यहाँ पे भी same है royalty or 3 lakhs, whichever is lower, would be allowed as deduction under section 80 RRD. No deduction in respect of such income will be allowed under any other provision of the income tax. अगर अब मैंने already guys उस पे से expenses claim कर लिए हैं तो उसको minus करके whatever amount is there, and if I've claimed deduction under 80 RRB, I cannot claim deduction again under 80 QQB. Got it, guys? So इसमें से whatever is lower, whichever is lower would be allowed as deduction. यहाँ पे भी you have to make sure that the royalty which would be eligible for deduction under 80 RRB, if received from outside India, if received from foreign, or if it is earned from outside India, it should be brought to India within 6 months, from the end of the previous year in which such income is generated. ठीक है? बहुत सिंपल है। टी क्यू क्यू बी पे क्वेश्चन जनरली कम्स है। RRB पे यहाँ पे 15% का क्राइटेरिया कुछ नहीं है, बिकॉज वहां पे वैल्यू ऑफ बुक सोल्ड पे है। दिस इज इन जनरल अ लंप सम समटाइम्स व्हिच यू गेट एज रॉयल्टी और 3 lakh, whichever is lower. The last two sections are very interesting and very simple sections, ATTTA and ATTTB. ATTTA and TTB, इसको हम we will do in a tabular form. So ATTTA and TTB, ATTTB is only for resident senior citizens. So if an SSC is a senior citizen but not resident, he will not get it a deduction here. He will get a deduction under ATTTA. Dono deductions cannot be claimed by a person. Either the person would be less than 60 years old, or if he's more than 60 years old and is resident, he will claim ATTTB. Otherwise, he will claim ATTTA. Not both at the same time can be claimed, other than resident senior citizen. Since this deduction section is in respect of certain incomes, यहाँ पे income which is allowed as deduction is saving bank interest. Saving interest. Demand deposit interest. Saving interest up to 10,000. Up to 10,000. So suppose I have saving interest from 3 banks. 1,000 from bank 1, 1,500 from bank 2, and 2,500 from bank 3. So the total deduction which would be allowed under ATTTA would be 5,000. 5,000 or 10,000, whichever is lower. All in saving bank interest combined. So saving bank interest का guys किससे मिलता है? Only from bank, banking company basically, cooperative bank, or post office. Or पोस्ट ऑफिस. अब सो रिमेम्बर एक पोस्ट ऑफिस के लिए एक एग्जेम्पशन आता है सेक्शन 10(5) में 3,500 रुपीज उस और 7,000 केस ऑफ जॉइंट होल्डर. आफ्टर that particular amount would be considered as deduction. Suppose I've got saving bank interest from post office, saving interest from post office. I will say saving post office interest of say 11,000. ठीक है. अब section 10(5) में first it would be exempt in my gross total income itself of 3,500 or 3,500. Already section 10(5) में guys it would be exempt, yes or no? Yes. So अब 11,000 में से 3,500 minus करके 7,500 would be taxable. And this 7,500 would now be eligible under section 80 TTA. Simple. Clear? Saving interest only is allowed. It can be from bank, cooperative bank, or post office. But what about my section 80 TTB? 80 TTB, guys, is available to resident senior citizen. यहाँ पे instead of just saving interest, a person is called any deposit interest, any deposit. अब वो कोई भी डिपॉजिट हो सकता है, सीनियर सिटीजन सेविंग डिपॉजिट, बट फ्रॉम एनी डिपॉजिट इंटरेस्ट फ्रॉम बैंक, पोस्ट ऑफिस एंड कोऑपरेटिव बैंक्स, ठीक है। तो यहाँ पे ऑब्वियसली एनी डिपॉजिट मतलब एफडी का भी इंटरेस्ट, यस एफडी इंटरेस्ट, रिकरिंग डिपॉजिट इंटरेस्ट, पोस्ट ऑफिस सेविंग स्कीम इंटरेस्ट, एनी इंटरेस्ट इज अलाउड अंडर 80TTB। एंड यहाँ पे भी गाइस 3500 का एग्जेम्पशन देने के बाद इफ इट इज कमिंग फ्रॉम पोस्ट ऑफिस दैट यू हैव टू कंसिडर, बट यहाँ पे डिडक्शन इज नॉट 10,000, the deduction is interest or 50,000, whichever is lower. So comparatively here you get a deduction of 50,000, वहां पे you get a deduction of 10,000, वहां पे only saving interest, यहाँ पे any deposit interest. So 80TTB is a good section. Again, both of them are not allowed to people who are paying tax as per the default tax regime, which is 115AC. Clear, guys? Any doubt? So with this, finally, we complete our deduction under chapter 6A. But one deduction which is still available from gross total income, but not there in chapter 6A, is deduction under section 10AA, which we'll be taking a post break. But before we go on break, if you have any doubts from 80C to 80TTB, 80U already we have considered, from 80C to 80U, if you have any doubts, please ask. Ashish, if you have two royalties, one from book, one from patent, then royalty वाले के लिए 3 lakh and patent वाले के लिए 3 lakh. Royalty for books वाले के लिए basically 3 lakhs under 80 QQB and patent के लिए 80 RRB, 3 lakhs. Definitely मिलेगा. All clear? I hope you're preparing short notes. I'll try to give you some MCQs to practice. But in case anyone has any doubts, please ask. I hope you liked the deductions ka journey. It's interesting, it's relatable, it's important, it's naturally coming a long way in your future also. No escaping anywhere in deductions, because no matter what you do, where you do, you will obviously have your incomes and you will obviously have your tax saving options, which is in there in the form of deductions. 80TTB में Harish, every type of interest, saving bank interest, fixed deposit interest, recurring deposit interest. The line says interest on any deposit made with bank, post office, cooperative banks. तो कोई भी deposit हो सकता है. Time and demand does not matter. But all in total 50,000 you will get. ऐसा नहीं है 50,000 for saving, 50,000 for RD. No. So quickly, let's meet after break. And today we took a late break, but don't worry. We have already one section left, which is a good and a very important section. So we'll connect back at around 8:45. Please have something to eat and we'll be back. Thank you. So, welcome back, everyone. And now we'll be proceeding to our last and important part, which is section 10AA. But before that, why not do one full-fledged question so that we feel confident on how a particular full-fledged deduction question, if it comes was 5 to 6 or 8 marks, how it is actually done. See, guys, this is my advice for everyone in general. Please make sure that your presentation of answers are also equally good and clear. Why so? Because you cannot put everything in the body of the question. A teacher has to check so many papers a day. For them, the answer should be as presentable, as clear as to what is written in the question, as to what is asked in the question. Usko agar wo easily mil gaya, so that is a win-win situation, and then that should be supported by your notes very carefully. Okay, so let's do this question of Gurnam. It will take 5 minutes, and then we'll proceed to our 80. Sorry, not 80, 10 double A. So Gurnam age is 42 years. See how I'm highlighting so that you also know, okay, these things have to be taken care of. As a salary income computed लिखा है तो मेरे को 50,000 का deduction भी नहीं देना और 5,50,000 for a previous year ended 31st March 2024. Interest of saving bank during the year is 14,500. Compute the total income like it. Whenever it is written total income, it does not mean gross total income. You have to find it net of deductions. From the following particulars, assuming he has exercised the option of shifting out from section 115 BAC. One is LIC, life insurance premium paid to Birla Sun Life, okay. In cash, okay. Interesting. Amounting to 25,000 for insurance life of his dependent parents, okay. The insurance policy was taken on 15th of July 2020 and the sum assured on life of his dependent parents is 2 lakhs. एक एक करके चलते हैं. First of all, on this, what is his total income? 5 lakh 50 plus 14,500 which comes to 5 lakh 64,500. ठीक है. अब 80C में देखते हैं whether this amount would be eligible as deduction, yes or no. The answer is no. The moment I highlighted dependent parents, I know it is not eligible for deduction. Why? Because only children, spouse and self is included. Children dependent or not, 80C में does not matter. Okay? Then life insurance premium of 19,500 paid for major son not dependent on him, not does not matter. Okay? The sum assured on life of his son is 350 and the life insurance policy was taken on 30th March of 2012. 3,50,000 है, a policy taken before 1st April 2012 quantifies to 20%, which is naturally in this case he's coming through. So this 19,500 is fully allowable under 80C. Then life insurance premium paid by check of 22,500 for a policy taken on 8th of September 2019 for 2 lakhs. Policy किसके लिए लिए? Of his life. Okay, so 8 September को लिए 10% of 2 lakh, only 20,000 would be allowed. So यहाँ पे instead of 22,500, 20,000 would be allowed. ठीक है, next आगे बढ़ते. Premium for paid by check for health insurance for self and his wife. ठीक है, 26,000 है, but क्योंकि the person is up to an age of 40, I think 42 था, हाँ. So 25,000 only would be allowed. 1,500 paid in cash for his health checkup and 4,500 paid in check for preventive health checkup for his parents who are senior citizen. No problem. 1,500 अगर मैं खुद में भी ऐड कर दूं और 4,500 इसमें नहीं ले सकती तो पहले, क्योंकि 25,000 तो ऑलरेडी यूज है, तो इट्स बेटर 4,500 यहाँ पे लूं और 500 यहाँ पे लूं, तब भी टोटल 5,000 इज ऑफ प्रिवेंटिव हेल्थ चेकअप इज अलाउड. सो यहाँ पे 1,500, क्योंकि ऑलरेडी 26,000 और 25,000 वाला ब्रैकेट हैज बीन कंज्यूम्ड, आई एम इग्नोरिंग दिस. But 4,500 of preventive health checkup I can easily claim for my parents under section 80D because उनका 50,000 का अलग से limit चल रहा है. Okay. Paid interest of 6,500 on loan taken from bank for MBA course pursued by daughter. Daughter है, problem नहीं है. MBA course है, problem नहीं है. 6,500 है, no problem. 6,500 fully allowed as deduction. Is my question complete? No. Because क्योंकि ऊपर अभी डोनेशन भी रहता है. Okay. 5,000 donated in cash to an institution approved for pursuit of Section 80G for promoting family planning. Just because family planning है तो deduction मिल जाएगा, not necessary because 2006 says cash donation is not allowed, which is given, so this is not to be considered. So simple question. आप लोगों की तरह complicated questions नहीं आते. Hypothetical scenarios which is so entangled like this कि okay, no, do detangle it. ऐसे questions नहीं आते. Simple checkpoints which I have given you कि remember these checkpoints. उसी चीज को you have to remember and you would be pro in solving your question. एक और डिडक्शन गाइस मिलेगा बिकॉज यहाँ पे नहीं लिखा बट सिंस सेविंग बैंक इंटरेस्ट ऑफ 14,500 इज इंक्लूडेड इन माई ग्रॉस टोटल इनकम 10,000 का डिडक्शन एटीटीटी ए में मिलेगा. कोई गाइस डाउट है? सिंपल क्वेश्चन था. गुड इंपॉर्टेंट क्वेश्चन. Like this question would come trust me, where there would be checkpoints also. Devraj, in which context are you talking about? A lot of people think, I hope, I believe all of you are English medium. If you're Hindi medium, also no problem. But for those who are English medium, start improving your English, basic English, and that would come by reading more of the books. If I'm talking about exams, reading exam books, writing properly, please, you have pure theoretical chapters, pure theoretical subjects. So please थोड़ा सा अपना English पे भी please work upon and bring that confidence in talking. Okay. Now, guys, next 15-20 minutes, let's focus on a new section 10AA. Just because वो 10 लिखा हुआ है does not mean it's an exemption section. No. वो 10 clauses so and so are the one which are there for exemption. This section itself is 10AA. I hope you people are at a stage where you know the difference between section 10 clause 10A and section 10AA, right? ठीक है. So let's begin. Ritu Banerjee in 80 QQB, value of book sold means जिस price पे book sell हुई है. As simple as that. MRP पे सेल वो नहीं है. अगर MRP पे सेल हुई है वो लेंगे और अगर कोई और नेट सेल प्राइस है that has to be taken and it would be given to you. I took an example for it also. Okay, so now section 10AA deduction under section 10AA. What this deduction is also for profits. Profits of an SSC, but what SSC are we talking about here? Can I have everyone on screen, please? First of all, this section is not available for anyone opting alternate tax regimes under section 115 BAC, 115 BA, BAB, or BAD, BE. They are available to all SSC, but not for them. So please, guys, can we have everyone attention now? Hmm. So particularly this deduction is for a business undertaking who is into the business of manufacturing or production of any articles or thing, manufacturing or production of any articles or things. So वो अगर service में है तो this section is not there. You have to be in a manufacturing or production, that is into a business of manufacturing or production of an article or thing, or provision of any service. But यहाँ पे service का क्या मतलब है? Of any computer software. It can be any computer software also, and you are located in SCZ area. SCZ area. So if you are located in an SCZ area, which is special economic zone area, every city, every state has a special economic zone area. If you are located there, you are producing articles or things or service, and by articles and things, we also mean uh, computer softwares. If you're producing articles, things, or services, then you are allowed a deduction of profits which you make by exporting. Which you make by exporting. See, for any country, guys, exporting is a huge boom because more the export, more the foreign exchange inflow. So वो जो reserves होते हैं वो better हो जाते हैं. And if you import, it's a B path for any economy because then again reserves का balance high maintain करना पड़ता है, which is not an ideal situation. So if you are into an SCZ and SCZ में ऐसे किसी को approval नहीं मिलता, okay, let's open a shop. You go to through a lot of rigorous applications under the SCZ Act. So if once you have approved through an SCZ and in that SCZ area you have any manufacturing or production of articles or things or services, then you are allowed as deduction. यहाँ पे claim exemption लिखा है, यहाँ पे actually deduction लिखाना चाहिए amount, okay? You are allowed to claim as deduction of the profits which you are making through exports. The profits which you are making through exports. So this is also sort of deduction in respect of income. अब यहाँ पे अगर if I have to write the conditions, what are the conditions that SSE is into manufacturing of or production of articles or things, okay? Or computer software or services or computer software. Okay, he would be getting 100% deduction of his 100% deduction of his export profits. Also, the SSE should be liable or he should file a tax audit under section 44AB. So can I say that to claim 10AA, you have to file the return within the due date and you have to file the return within the due date. You have to file the tax audit 1 month prior to the due date and you are into the manufacturing of so and so articles and things and in an SCZ area. But क्या मैम ये कोई भी आज भी सेटअप करे सबको मिलता है? नहीं. This again was done to promote for more and more people to come in SCZ area who are into exporting, and they should have started their business of manufacturing or so from between previous year 2005 to 6 and previous year 2019-20. अगर आपने अपना मैन्युफैक्चरिंग इस पीरियड में if you have started, if you have commenced your manufacturing in this period which is previous year 5-6 to previous year 19-20, यहाँ पे assessment year के respect to लिखा हुआ है, I'm telling you in respect of previous year, then only you will be eligible for the deduction for profits. But you have got an approval before 31st March 2020, but because of certain approval मिलता है SEZ का, then only you commence production, okay? So you got an approval letter before 31st March 2020, which is this case, but you started your manufacturing only by only between that one period, which is by 31st March 2021. Will you be eligible? Yes, you will be eligible. So can I say it is applicable to any SSE who got an approval by 31st March 2020 and started manufacturing by 31st March 2021? Correct? This particular section would be allowed as deduction to any person who has started manufacturing or production or articles or services between 5-6 or 19-20. But to cut it short, you can say to any person who has gotten approval by 31st March 2020 and has begun the production by 31st March 2021, उनको भी allow होगा. But guys, what is the deduction which we are talking about here? I'll come to that, but few more conditions that you have to remember is that the person should be liable for tax audit. This deduction would only be available if you file the return within due date. Within due date. And since we're talking about exports, तो exports में amount foreign exchange में भी मिलेगा, correct? Amount foreign exchange में मिलेगा because money can be received in foreign currency. So if you want to claim the deduction, you have to bring that money to India within 6 months from the end of the previous year. Within 6 months from the end of the previous year in Indian bank account or into any account which is maintained outside India but approved by RBI. Okay, any account maintained outside India but approved by RBI. 6 months के अंदर पैसा आ गया, प्रॉफिट आ गया. अब डिडक्शन किसका मिलेगा गाइस? PGBP में you show turnover? No, PGBP में the taxable amount is the profit. So the deduction here is also for the profits. What is the deduction? Now let's break the thing. So deduction, my guys, friends, here would be allowed for three segments. 3 segments मतलब 15 years के लिए deduction is allowed. For the first 5 years, beginning from the year in which the production started, first 5 years, deduction would be allowed for 100% of export profits. 100% of export profits. So profit जो भी export से आया, 100% would be allowed as deduction. Then next 5 years, यानी next 5 assessment years के लिए, profit would be allowed as deduction, but only to the extent of 50% of export profit. 50% of export profits. And उसके next 5 years, यानी from 11th to 15th year, profit would be allowed as 50% of export profit. और यहाँ पे condition भी आ गया. Or amount transferred to a specific reserve, which we'll talk about. Okay, whichever is lower. Amount transferred to specific reserve, whichever is lower. So suppose my profit is 200 crores, but उसमें से export profit is 50 crores. So first 5 years में suppose if I'm talking about in any situation of the first 5 years, so 50 crores would be allowed as deduction from gross total income under section 10AA. पूरा gross total income 10AA में you will write deduction under section 10AA if 100% of export profit पूरा 50 crores. But if this situation is in between from 6th to 10th year, then you will claim deduction of 25 crores. If the situation is between 11th to 15th year, you will claim deduction of 25 crores or amount transferred to the reserve. So suppose the amount transferred to reserve is 30 crores. So you will claim 25 crores. If the amount transferred to reserve is 20 crores, you will claim 20 crores as deduction. Simple. ठीक है. अब जैसे इस केस में which is given in your book also, an undertaking is set up in SCZ and begins manufacturing on 15th of October 2009. तो फर्स्ट ईयर गाइस कौन सा हो गया? प्रीवियस ईयर 9-10. ठीक है. The deduction under section 10AA shall be allowed from assessment year 10-11, obviously previous year to the assessment year, or assessment year to the relevant previous year. So assessment year 10-11 to assessment year 14-15, 5 years हो गए 100%. फिर assessment year 15-16 से assessment year 19-20, next 5 years 50%. And फिर assessment year 2021 से 2024-25, next 5 years 50%, subject to the certain condition which is transferred to the specific reserve which I told you. कोई doubt guys? अब प्रॉब्लम क्या आता है? प्रॉब्लम इज कि एक्सपोर्ट प्रॉफिट कैसे निकालेंगे एंड हाउ द अदर थिंग्स हैव टू बी टेकन केयर ऑफ. वन बाय वन लेट्स डू. thing I've written here is 100% of export profit, because यहाँ पे if you're a entity located in SEZ, you're not making any export turnover, you will not get deduction under 10AA. 10AA is for a special economic zone, and special economic zone is a zone where the policies are liberated, the work moves faster. If you're into special economic zone, most of them are actually into the export part only. And if you're into export of services or export of production of articles, etc., तो उसका खाली export profit मिलेगा. अब ऐसा नहीं है that you should have exclusive export profit. I can have turnover from sales in India and sales outside India. The profit which I have to take care here is only export profit. अब how will I calculate export profit? यहाँ पे simple है. Suppose it has a total turnover of say 300 crores. The export turnover is 200 crore. अब टोटल प्रॉफिट ही दिया होगा आपको बैलेंस शीट में, करेक्ट? द टोटल प्रॉफिट ओनली वुड बी गिवन. So suppose the total profit is 50 crores. If someone has to ask me what is the export profit, total profit में से, what is the profit for export? How will I compute it? I will simply unitary method. So 50 crore is the total profit on a turnover of 300 crores. Then 200 crore पे यानी एक्सपोर्ट टर्नओवर पे कितना प्रॉफिट हुआ? सिंपल 50 into 200 divided by 300, which is 33.33 crore. Anyone has any doubt? So this is my export profit, which would be eligible for deductions depending upon the year which I'm falling in from the year of commencement. Got it? अब सब नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन आता है कि गाइस टर्नओवर में क्या इंक्लूड करना है? What has to be included in the turnover? What has to be included in the turnover? Obviously, whatever exports in money has been coming, that has to be included. But guys, when you make export, obviously you might be making through ships, etc. वहां पे the contract includes amount of freight, amount of telecommunication services, amount for insurance, because insurance is a huge component. All of that has to be excluded from the meaning of turnover. So suppose I made a sale of say 40 lakhs abroad. इसमें से 10 lakhs is plus 10 lakhs is for insurance plus 5 lakhs is for freight. So I have to only consider 40 lakhs. I cannot say कि मेरे को 40 plus 10 plus 5 मिला है, which is 55 lakhs. Full has to be considered. So nothing, no freight. So ना ही वो total turnover में include होगा, not export turnover में. No freight, no insurance, or no telecommunication services amount has to be included in my meaning of telecommunication charges, I should say, in my meaning of turnover or export turnover. Question can come, turnover would be given to you, or total turnover में लिखा होगा these components are included. You have to exclude that and then solve the question. You have to exclude that and then solve the question. These three components, also duty drawback or any entitlement, etc. is given, you have to exclude it. Now, एक बहुत important चीज पे आएंगे, but before that, let's do one question, then we'll come to that thing. Illustration 21 पे आते हैं. बहुत सारी चीजें हमें रहती हैं, ऐसा नहीं है we have finished it, don't worry. Everyone on the screen, please. Illustration 21 will tell me about my understanding of SEZ. Okay. System Y furnishes the following information. Total turnover of unit A located in SEZ. जैसे ही SEZ आया, your mind should go, oh, 10AA का question है ये. SEZ 100 lakhs. Profits of the business of unit A 30 lakhs. Total turnover of unit A दिया हुआ है 100, ठीक है? Profit unit A से 30. Export turnover of unit A received in Indian convertible foreign exchange on or before 30th September is 50 lakh, sorry. Total turnover of unit B located in domestic tariff area 200 lakhs and profit of business of unit B 20. सबसे पहले this section is only for SCZ. So for any unit which is located in DTA would not be considered, would not be considered. Now I have to compute my deduction, but let me see what are the other information given to me. We have commenced operation in SCZ and DTA in the year 1920. Mr. Y has exercised the option of shifting order from the default tax regime. Okay, I have to compute the reduction under 10AA for assessment year 24-25. First of all, ये तो पूरा का पूरा this full 20 lakhs is not taken to be not to be considered. I have to see कि मेरा total profits unit A का हुआ 30 lakhs जिसमें से it was on a turnover of 100 and 50 is the export turnover. So total 50 lakhs is the profit which is export profit. Now I have to see I am falling under which year. 1920 में I started. Previous year 1920 when I started. I'm in assessment year 24-25. So am I eligible for I'm in the first 5 years, correct? So this 15 lakhs is fully eligible under section 10AA as 100% of export profit from manufacturing unit located in SEZ. Simple. ऐसे क्वेश्चन आते हैं एमसीक्यूज में जनरली, ठीक है? डोमेस्टिक टैरिफ एरिया दिया हुआ है, वो जस्ट कंफ्यूज करने के लिए दिया हुआ, ओनली फॉर यू टू कंफ्यूज. One more question we'll do, and then I will come to the fifth condition of special economic reserve, so that पहले एक बार export profit निकालना clear हो जाए. One more question of Rudra has been given as test to knowledge. We'll take that. Rudra has one unit at SCZ and another unit at DTA. He provides with the following details. Units in DTA का detail दिया हुआ है, रुद्र का, ठीक है. Rudra has one unit in SCZ. Total sales 60 lakhs. Unit in DTA की, sorry, 6 crores. Unit in DTA का हुआ है 2 crores. Okay, no problem. तो SCZ का कितना हुआ होगा? 4 crores. We are smart guys. एक्सपोर्ट सेल्स है 5 करोड़ 60 lakhs टोटल रुद्रा की. क्वेश्चन में गाइस यही सब चेकिंग पॉइंट्स होते हैं, ठीक है? 5 करोड़ 60 lakhs एंड यूनिट इन एससीजेड से हुआ है 1 करोड़ 60 lakhs. ओके, नेट प्रॉफिट ये तो नेचुरली 4 करोड़ है. ओके, नो डाउट. नेट प्रॉफिट 80 lakhs है, जो 20 lakhs हुआ है मेरे को डीडी से, तो 60 lakhs हुआ है. Wait out. So I only have to consider these figures which I have taken up. Proceeds from export sale is received in convertible foreign exchange by 30th of September 2024 is 3 crores. Okay. तो SCZ से जो मिला है वो 4 crore की जगह अब हम कितना कंसिडर करेंगे? 3 crores. What we'll consider? 3 crores. वैसे तो 4 crores है, but export turnover. But guys, only what has been received by convertible foreign exchange is only 3 crores. ये 3 0 थे, ठीक है? तो यहाँ पे 3 crore would be considered. Yes, exercise the option of shifting order from 115 BC. Very good. Calculate the eligible deduction under section 10AA. Assuming The units were set up and start manufacturing from 20th of May 2015, and we are in the assessment year 2024-25. उनका फर्स्ट असेसमेंट ईयर का रिडक्शन हुआ होगा इन 15-16. So we are in which year? Ninth, right? So ninth year में 50% of profits मिलता है, 50% of export profits. But what is my 50% of export profit, which is what I have to see? Export profit कितना होगा guys? Simple. 60 lakhs into 300 lakhs कर ले या 3 crores कर ले, ठीक है? Divide by total turnover 4 crores, ठीक है? इसको करोगे तो your answer would come to 45 lakhs, but 45 lakhs only 50% would be allowed, which is 22.5 lakhs. Would your answer change if the unit was established and started manufacturing from 14th May 2019? Definitely, because then we'll be in the first 5 years. तो उस केस में पूरा 45 lakhs का profit मिलेगा. And DTA का profit कहीं नहीं मिलेगा. This you will write domestic tariff area का profit is not eligible for any calculation under 10AA. Got it? Guys, कोई doubt in how do we compute it? Abhi there are a bit of other points left. Ultimately, Ashish, the profit which is considered in the PGB period. Devraj, please ask your query. I don't think so. It was clearly written. Any other doubt, guys? SEZ का profit निकालना आ गया. Generally, such type of question comes at your level. Anyone has any doubt? See, ultimately, you have to focus in three conditions. Okay, SEZ है, export profit निकालना है, export turnover clearly ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा alteration can come in a way that, okay, freights are included in export turnover, so you have to exclude it in export turnover. Total turnover से भी also you have to exclude it. And ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा this altercation can come. And you have to focus on, क्या है, to just focus on an SEZ unit engaged in manufacturing and exporting the articles or of goods or services, etc., whatever. So you have to engage yourself in that information. Write down that information clearly. What has come in my foreign exchange, what has been repatriated to India, that has to be considered from turnover, and then see in which year you're falling. In the first 5 years or in the next 5 years. ठीक है? उसी से simply you can do the question. Guys, up one or two things or some important points which are left. Let's take them also now. Last thing क्या था, first 5 years में 100%, second 5 years में and the next 5 years में 50%, and third 5 years में था, यानी जो 11th to 15th assessment year में था, उसमें था 50% of profits, but subject to condition, and the condition is that the certain amount should be debited from P&L and should be credited to a reserve called Special Economic Zone, SEZ, Reinvestment Reserve. इसमें से whatever amount has been transferred, whichever is lower would be eligible for deduction. Now, guys, ये क्या है वो? अब if you will read the name twice, you will understand the use of this reserve. Reserve क्या होता है, guys? Where we are keeping a money aside from our profits for a certain occasion or a certain happening or a certain purpose. Capital reserve है या any reserve है, any reserve which you are creating is basically for a specific from profits but for a specific purpose. इस रिजर्व का नाम क्या है? SCZ reinvestment reserve account. That means whatever money is transferred from this reserve, you have to reinvest it. You have to reinvest in it. So reinvestment reserve account gets opened from the 11th assessment year, correct? A reinvestment reserve account is opened from the 11th assessment year, जिसमें you are starting putting the money from the profit. P&L को डेबिट करोगे, रिजर्व को क्रेडिट normally, right? So starting putting the money from the profit. अब जो actual profit हुआ है वो या the money which have transferred to the SCZ, whichever is lower has to be considered. Now the point is, what is the use for creating this reserve? Whatever reserve you have created, whatever reserve which you have created, उसमें से reserve which has been created, it is for reinvestment for SCZ only. Reinvestment मतलब through plant and machinery you have to reinvest. So you have to acquire and put to use. Acquire and put to use within 3 years. Within 3 years. From 3 years from what date? 3 years from end of assessment, or I should say end of the year in which reserve is created, on which if I'm creating the reserve in the 11th assessment year, and suppose 11th assessment year hypothetically is falling in assessment year 24 and 25. I've started creating the reserve here. So इस साल से 3 साल. So by 31st March 2028, I have to acquire and put to use machinery which I have used from this reserve. The amount has been used from this reserve, and I have taken new plant and machinery. I've taken new plant and machinery, and the amount has been utilized from this reserve. Because ultimately, if I talk about any business, post 10 years down the line, you have to make reinvestment in the forms of plant and machinery or capital expenditure, correct? So why not create a reserve from the profits which are eligible for deduction? Let's create a reserve out of it. And us reserve say we have to invest in a plant and machinery within 3 years from the year when the reserve is created. Okay. Once this is done, no problem. But if you do not purchase plant and machinery within 3 years, or you misutilize this money in this 3 years period for paying dividends or for any other expenditure, whatever amount you misutilize or you don't utilize within 3 years, after 3 years, would be taken as your income of the year in which it is not utilized post 3 years or in which it is misutilized. और ये सब कौन करेगा? जो ऑडिट करेगा ना, बिकॉज इसमें प्रॉपर फॉर्म जाएगा. ही विल टेक केयर yes, special economic reserve which has been created, whether it has been utilized within 3 years or not. If it is not utilized, then they will take it as your income. If it is utilized, not a problem. If it is misutilized, suppose dividend देने में it is utilized or somewhere else or other, then they would treat it as income of that year. Got it? Now, last point. इसमें बहुत सारी चीजें लिखी हुई है. What are all are important? I have discussed. Last point. Suppose amalgamation happens. I have created an SEZ. Amalgamation happens, or the business is transferred to someone else, or demerger happens. Then what will happen? Profit कितने साल के लिए मिल रहा है? For 15 years. Suppose till 6th year I was running, then 7th year से amalgamation हो गया. So no problem. The new entity would be entitled for the deduction. The new entity which is taken up, in this case, it would be the amalgamated or the resulting company, those would be entitled for the deduction. So ऐसा कुछ नहीं है कि अगर आपने न्यू ओनर आ गया in the form of amalgamating or demerger, the new owner would be entitled to claim the deduction from the year of amalgamation or from the year of demerger. And last point, there are SCZ in many areas, correct? There are SCZ in different cities, different states. So suppose I was in Gurgaon SCZ, now I've been shifted to, say, Surat SCZ. So I will continue to claim the deduction. The point is that till the time I'm in SCZ and getting profits, I will continue to claim the deduction for the 15 years. Checking wala SCZ wala question of specific reserve comes very rarely, but you should know if a question comes that yes, amount transferred to a specific economic reserve has been done. 3 years, the plant and machinery has to be obtained from it. So this is it from my side. कोई doubt है guys, you can ask. Question generally, as I told you, comes from the first or the 10th assessment year. 11 to 15th years में, which is this SEZ wala year, less question comes, but you should know about it. Correct. FD interest ka Devraj, you can claim deduction of 50,000 of interest if it's coming from any deposit, but from bank, cooperative banks or post office, and the person is senior citizen, you can claim under 80TTB. Srinivasan, we get very limited time. And usme, I try to do all the questions. Sometimes you people feel that no questions have been taken, but I try to take it through my live examples, through my personal examples, or whatever examples you throw in. And wherever possible, I take illustrations also and test your knowledge. Yes, but if time is left, definitely I'll take up. Ashish, देखो, whenever amalgamation happens, two entity are there, amalgamating company and the amalgamated companies. तो जिस साल से amalgamation हुआ है, amalgamating को नहीं मिलेगा, amalgamated को मिलेगा. As in, suppose the amalgamation happens in this year. So both the entities cannot claim, only the new entity would claim. This is written in 80. So suppose Soumya, आपके reserve में there was roughly say 2 crore rupees. You have invested in new and plant and machinery of up to 1.5 crore only. So 50 crores after the end of 3 years would become your income. 50 lakhs, sorry. At the end of 3 years would become your income. Those who have studied earlier also, 10AA was first part of your chapter 3 deduction, income exempt wala, but this time onwards it has been taken up in deduction because this is actually a deduction ka section and not your section of exempt income. Okay. Or कोई doubts, guys? Don't worry. Do all the questions. Srinivasan, do all the MCQs, do all the illustrations. I dedicate almost 5-10 minutes at the beginning of the class also and towards the end of the class also for your queries. If you have any query, any section, let me know. I will take it up. कोई clarity नहीं आया, I will take it up. I try to even tell you what all conditions you have to take care when you're doing a question. Please make a habit of writing the answers. And by writing, I does not mean only solving. I do not mean only solving. I mean writing it. Yes, royalty received in cash does not matter. It would be eligible. So far as the royalty which is getting taxable in your PGBP, वो deduction के लिए allowed है. ठीक है शादी. अब सपोज टोटल 15 years का डिडक्शन मिलता है. सपोज 6th year में जाके अमेलगमेशन हो गया, तो फर्स्ट 5 years तो जो अर्लियर कंपनी थी उसने क्लेम किया. And now from sixth year onwards, the resulting company or the amalgamated company, that company, the resulting company or the amalgamated company would claim the deductions from सिक्स्थ ईयर ऑनवर्ड्स टिल 15th ईयर, तो उनको रिमेनिंग जो पीरियड मिला है उतना मिलेगा। ओके, उनके लिए फर्स्ट ईयर से स्टार्ट नहीं होगा, ऐसा नहीं है कि दे विल क्लेम 100 फ्रॉम दैट ईयर, नो। रिमेनिंग पीरियड के लिए दे कैन क्लेम द डिडक्शन, द सक्सेसर एंटिटी बेसिकली। विच हेड आर यू टॉकिंग अबाउट प्रशांत? ये तो हमने कहीं पढ़ा ही नहीं, 1.5 लाख फ्रॉम ईच हेड, रिस्पेक्टिव विच सेक्शन आर यू टॉकिंग अबाउट? Yes, reserve has to be maintained by the successor also. इसमें एक असेसिंग ऑफिसर वाला पॉइंट है, अगर वो नहीं क्लियर होता गाइस, नो वरीज, आई विल ट्राई, if you think I'll try, if you need I'll try rather in the next class, but what all important has been covered, don't worry about that. Got it? Can we wrap up the class? Wish you guys all the best. I hope your deduction chapter is clear, done. Please prepare the notes. इसको simply revise करना. From the next class onwards, we start about TDS, TCS. It's an amazing journey there also. I really like these two specific chapters in particular. So कोई भी doubt होगा, you can ask. Don't worry. In the next class also, I'll give you certain time for the queries of any reductions if you have. 1.5 lakh, Prashant, is the reduction which you get under section 80C, and if combined with 80C, 80CC, CCC, and 80CCD, total along with that 1.5 lakh is from the gross total income. Okay, so thank you so much. See you guys in the next class. Hope you have a great day. Thank you.